there's a lot of newness. I have also noticed as people are starting to, we are in our own developmental phases. Possibly we're all going through the stages of grief. And I notice the more similar to normal that I'm feeling, the more tempting it is to treat everybody else the way I normally would. And I think that we need to keep those principles in mind, and that we don't know at all what's going on with somebody else. And so even if we think, it's funny because this fits entirely into choice theory, which focuses on not personalizing information from other people. And my favorite William Glasser quote is, when you try to change somebody else, first of all, you don't. Second, now you've lost the relationship with them. Moral of the story, don't think that you're going to be able to change or convince somebody. And I really think in counseling, the best that we can do is create the core conditions where somebody is able to fully explore and make the best choice for themselves. And we create that space, but we don't determine what it is that they're going to choose. We help them just be educated. Okay, so we're just going to go to talk about choice theory.
Okay.
So I'm gonna pull up that video. We'll start talking about it, and then actually maybe we could do some activities before we start talking about the theory part. So so the first thing that we're going to do is I am going to show you. The 5 basic needs of choice theory, or William Glasser's essential human needs. By the way, they are survival, power, and power. When we talk about power, power includes recognition and autonomy. Love and belonging is number 3. Freedom is number 4. And fun is number 5. Fun, that also incorporates creativity and play. Like some people may be taking the counseling children class and you're learning about play therapy. That type of play is included within this idea of fun, which is a basic human necessity. So what I want you to do is to think about these 5 needs. They are fun, freedom, love and belonging, power, and survival. And I want you to rank them according to which of those you are prioritizing the most. So I'm going to just show you those on by sharing screen, and I do know how to do that part. Okay, so we are starting out with survival, like iguanas versus snakes. Our next one again is, well, I'll say survival relates to our survival as a species, so how we go about continuing the human race, protecting ourselves from harm, and so on. It includes security, how we ensure that we're safe. But unlike the baby iguana, I don't like entering situations without knowing what's going to happen. Next one, power. A high need for power does not make you a megalomaniac. It includes recognition, feeling worthwhile, significant, like you're contributing, that you're achieving. Next, love and belonging. This includes connecting to our family, our friendship groups, our work groups, colleagues, neighbors, hobby groups, etc. Next is freedom. Freedom includes autonomy, being in charge of in control of your own destiny and what you do and where you go. And lastly, fun. Pleasure, enjoyment, creativity, play. That's all encompassed within fun. So take a couple minutes and prioritize your list of 5. We'll take 1 to 2 minutes to do that, and then we'll come back for something else. William Glasser, he was a super cool guy. I've met him, I've seen him demonstrate live. Unfortunately, about 1.5 years ago, is horrible, but he and his wife were killed in a car accident. But great guy, and really well thought out ideas and values. And I'm even thinking, as a personal challenge to myself, let me say some things about choice theory before we really get into it. One is, people like this theory, and it is often used in schools by school counselors, as well as people working in agencies and elsewhere with people of every age. One of the reasons it works well with all people because it's so focused on non-judgment and not judging. It's just data. And so I'm going to tell you, here is the essence of it. Oh, yes, okay. So the essence of choice theory is that we make the best choice that we can based on the information that we have. Sometimes those choices don't turn out so good. And so then we need to make other choices. But there is no blaming involved. And so what we need to do is to accept responsibility for what was going on at the time that was within our control, and accept responsibility that this was the choice that I made based on the information that I have, as opposed to, and to accept responsibility for ourselves and not be trying to blame other people for what's going on with ourselves. And sometimes that can be a little difficult to disentangle the difference between accepting responsibility and saying, yeah, that's what was going on, and understanding how that's different from blaming, which this is not. And there's something else unique about William Glasser. He is a psychiatrist, and as you know, a psychiatrist is a medical doctor who prescribes medication. So William Glasser, yes, he's a psychiatrist. Yes, he was a medical doctor. No, he did not prescribe medication. He was licensed and qualified to prescribe medication, but he did not believe in medication. I saw him talk about one of his books that came out in the 90s that was called Psychiatry Can Be Hazardous to Your Health. And he thought that managed care and corporate pharmaceutical companies, he thought that they were taking advantage of people for their own profit and benefit. And he thought that medication was not necessary. And you know, if you are, and he said that for almost all clients that he was working with, unless there were things that were biologically going on. Some of his clients did receive medication from other providers as well. So let's dig in. And please, at any point, shout or ask a question, and we'll make it through this. So William Glasser, he was a psychiatrist who became disinterested in psychoanalysis. In fact, in many ways, his values, and he was very wellness focused, he was very much in line with professional counseling. In fact, we almost had him come here. One of the most interesting things that has happened while I've been here is I was walking past the CCTC, and the graduate assistant was on the phone, and I heard him say, why, yes, Mr. Glasser, we would be happy to do that. And so we almost got him here for NIUCA. Didn't work out because NIU would have taken too long with paperwork, etc. But really what he wanted to do was to be focusing on what is going on in somebody's current life versus their past. And so that's how he's different than psychoanalysis, which has that huge focus on early childhood and thinking that that's where all of our patterns get set. So when he started his ideas, he called it control theory because he thought that by acting in accordance with these ideas, you have more control over your life. He then switched the name to reality therapy, whoops, and he then changed to choice theory. We talked a moment ago about the 5 basic needs, and so that's what motivates us to grow and change and develop, that we are always trying to get our needs met. Before I talk about these, I want to give 3 kind of philosophical backgrounds, foundations to choice theory. The first is fits with what we talked about with Adler for as if, acting as if. So when Glasser started control theory, some of the ideas that he was putting down, they may or may not have been true in so-called reality. However, if you lived your life acting as if these things were true, specifically related to your own control over what happens in your life, if you act as if you're in control of your life, you have more control over your life and you're way happier. There is a somewhat obscure book by my favorite author, Kurt Vonnegut. The name of the book is Cat's Cradle. And Cat's Cradle is about a country where they had a fake religion. And everybody knew it was fake, but they all practiced it as if it were true. And they were all happier as a result. It's kind of like choice theory. So that was the first principle. Now I don't remember what the other 2 were, but I'm sure they'll come back to me while we're talking. Okay, so we have our 5 basic needs that we talked about, and different people will prioritize these needs in different order. For example, for myself, I like fun a lot, maybe too much. And so that is very, very high for me. And you can imagine, though, in friendships and romantic relationships, if one person prioritizes power and the other person prioritizes fun or love and belonging, there can be a mismatch. I personally think that all of the 5 needs are more or less equal. William Glasser did not think that. He believed that love and belonging was the most important one. And he was a participant in 2 long-term marriages. The second one, I think the first one, his wife died. And then he was married for another 30 years or so and had that car accident. So those were pretty important to him. And so I'm curious to hear from people who are present which needs you prioritize and why you think that is.
Hi.
Hello.
Right here.
Yes. Speak. Yes.
I'm having a problem like prioritizing them because I feel like I kind of focus on all of those areas.
Oh, okay. There is in
Like I,
the in the module there was like a somewhere in there there's a quiz or a survey you can take, and that might help people. But go ahead, Brenda.
yeah, I was just gonna say, like for me, like power, survival, and freedom are like kind of grouped together, and love and fun are kind of grouped together. So maybe
Okay,
it'd be like a 1 and a 2 for me, kind of. Like I
sure.
don't know if I can separate it down to like a 5 because they're all important.
And,
And
and how what so how do you what are your groupings that get you those together with each other?
so like love and fun would go together for me, and like I'm that's really important to me that I have that in the front and center of my life so that I can keep balance. And then survival, I think everybody is kind of working on that, and that kind of goes along with power and freedom for me, anyways.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and they are all essential. Every
Yeah,
one of
absolutely.
these, I mean, even though we prioritize them, we have to have all of them. How about somebody else?
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. For me, there are two. There are the first ones, survival and freedom,
Okay,
on the same level.
yeah,
And the other three, love and belonging and power and fun. No, I'm lying. Love and power, and the second level, and the third is fun.
okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
How about anybody else?
I think for mine, it's survival, love and belonging, freedom, power, and fun. Yeah, I know my husband probably has fun a little higher, but
Ah, yeah. So, and how did you choose survival as the highest?
I think that goes with, for me, my own common sense. Just I can't have the other four without being able to provide for myself and for my family. So that's just why I put survival first.
Yeah.
Just yeah, none of the other stuff happens if I'm dead.
And
So
I wonder if for a lot of people in the world right now, regardless of what their natural preferences, if survival has jumped to the top right now.
yeah, true. Maybe that's why I probably put it at the top of my list right now.
Could be. And even though I'm not concerned for my own survival, my relatives who are older, I'm very concerned about them right now. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's really dominating everything I do and think about.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So for those who are interested in further exploring the 5 essential needs, um, there in the module, there are additional activities that you can use for yourself or that you can use with clients. Mike, remind me when we're done with the PowerPoint to show the Facebook picture I sent you. Okay. So, well, I can't read though. Yeah. Okay, basic needs and total behavior. Basic needs, that's what we've just been talking about. Now, total behavior, it's almost a gestalt, which means whole, that Glasser and choice theory are looking at the whole person and looking at how all of our different parts, and remember, this fits into this is one of the cognitive approaches. And so how our thoughts interact with our emotions, interact with our feelings, like how our body feels, interacts with our thoughts, emotions, actions. We'll get to that. There's a visual a little bit later here. So total behavior encompasses everything we do and think and say, and it's all together. We'll get to it. Oh, it's right there. Yeah. All human beings strive to meet the 5 basic needs in order to avoid the pain of experiencing life without one of these needs being met. And by the way, when one of those needs is challenged or threatened, then we respond defensively and protectively in order to be able to keep meeting those basic needs. All behavior is purposeful and goal-directed. So everything that we do is seen as accomplishing something for us. It's purposeful. Total behavior includes thinking, doing, feeling, and physiology. That's our body feelings. But we can only control our thinking and our doing, which is our behavior. We all have the capacity to fulfill our basic needs with our total behavior. And our total behavior is responsible or irresponsible. If it's responsible, we meet our own needs without preventing others from doing the same. If it's irresponsible, we meet our own needs through controlling other people. So then we get to total behavior. Glasser uses the metaphor of a car. So we've got the front wheels, and this is what kind of pulls us forward in life. And so what pulls us forward is our acting and our thinking. That's our behavior and our cognition. The engine, what kind of stirs it and provides fuel, is getting our basic needs met. Now, there's these concepts called wants. That's how we would prefer things to be. That's the steering wheel. That determines the direction in which we're steering our life. The back wheels, and it's not 4-wheel drive. So these feelings and physiology are said to emerge from or be pulled by the acting and the thinking. As it says on the bottom, all behavior is total behavior. All behavior is chosen. Now, I'm going to say again, in reality, is all behavior chosen? No. In fact, people are often put into oppressive situations that are beyond their control. That's not what we're talking about. Our own individual behavior, if we act as if we believe that it is chosen, we will be happier and it will help us make better choices in the future. Another important concept for choice theory is quality world. And so a quality world is a mental image that we develop of how we want things to be in our environment and our surroundings and for ourselves. And then once we have created that quality world, we strive to make it come true. And that is also a big part of what motivates us. We all develop ideas or inner picture albums about who or what will help us meet our basic needs. The world of advertising and marketing has caught onto this idea, and they want us to put their products into our quality world. Okay, this is a huge choice theory construct. Most of our problems are relationship problems with people we put in our quality worlds. Now, there's a shorthand quote of that concept that just really helps you understand. And Glasser said, I mean, it's not quite true, but it's a good mnemonic. All problems are relationship problems. Let me say it again. All problems are relationship problems, which is to say this thing that I'm thinking of as a huge problem, it's really only a problem because of a relationship and how it impacts and affects our relationship with the people we put in our quality worlds. So choice, remember how Carl Rogers had 19 principles that you included in your paper about person-centered counseling? those 19 principles. William Glasser has 10 axioms. And so I will just read these. So these are all beliefs of choice theory. The only person whose behavior we can control is our own at every moment. Remember, we can't change anybody else. All we can give another person is information, and then they can choose what to do with that information. All long-lasting psychological problems are relationship problems. It's so interesting because if you're in a position of authority as a teacher or a parent or a counselor, that means that any problem that a client has with you is a relationship problem, and you have the power to determine whether or not that actually is going to be a problem. The problem relationship is always a part of our present life. What happened in the past has everything to do with what we are today, but we can't do anything about it. We can only satisfy our basic needs right now and plan to continue satisfying them in the future. We can only satisfy our needs by satisfying the pictures, the mental images in our quality world. Everything that we do is behave. That's total behavior. All behavior is total behavior, acting, thinking, feeling, physiology, which is body feelings. All total behavior is chosen, but we only have direct control over the acting and thinking components. We can only control our feeling and our physiology indirectly through how we choose to act and think. Remember that car metaphor. The acting and thinking are the front wheels. The feeling of emotions and our body feelings, those are the back wheels. So the direction they go, our emotions and our feelings, is determined by our thoughts and our actions. All total behavior is designated by verbs and named by the part that is most recognizable. So what William Glasser likes to do is to take adjectives and make them into verbs. And what that accomplishes is it shows how we have control over what we are experiencing. So rather than saying, I am depressed, Glasser would say, you're depressing. Rather than saying, I have a stomach ache, would say, you're stomaching, I think. Rather than saying, I'm pissed off, it would be, you are angering. And so and by thinking of it that way, it gives us more control over it. So we now come to 7 deadly habits and 7 caring habits. Before we do that, I want to see if there are questions or comments about what we've talked about so far.
Yeah, this rubbed me the wrong way when I was reading about it earlier.
That is a
no
common,
fan.
so that's a common initial impression. But I think that, you know, as I started out saying, many of these concepts, they seem one way, but they're actually different than how that initial impression.
There's one thing I have a question about.
Yes.
The behavior leading to how we're feeling.
Yes.
Like, I mean, I get that in a sense, like, because they mentioned using this in like a school setting and in a like in an addiction setting, and that makes a lot of sense, like especially with addiction, because the addiction is the thing that you're trying to solve. But like in a situation like this, like I have no control over this. Like how are my actions, you know, like I'm anxiousing.
Yes, you are.
Because
Yeah.
there's a global pandemic. So like my feelings of anxiety are because I'm actively choosing them. That's the thing that like gets my cockles raised, is the whole like, as soon as someone is like all, my brain automatically goes into defensive mode. Like it's like he's saying, oh, this is your fault, but then it's also not based on
Right.
blaming.
So let me say, William Glasser, like first sentence, first paragraph, every book he writes, there is no blame involved in choice theory. And it's so interesting because somebody like you read that, and what you pick up from what you're reading is, oh my God, he's saying that this caused this other thing. Isn't that blaming that other thing?
Yeah, like it's an immediate trigger for me. Like
Mhm.
it just gets me right on the defense. Like it's hard to sell that.
Which is exactly an example of what Glasser is talking about, that you have this thought like choice theory, no, it's blaming, and then you start to feel emotions, and you feel that you have the thought first, and then the emotions follow the thought. And that is true of all of the cognitive theories. So when we talked about CBT, REBT last week, they all say that we have this sequence that thoughts and feelings and behaviors, they're interconnected, but thoughts and feelings never come first. And so that is true of CBT, REBT, choice theory, all of the cognitive theories talk about that.
Oh, okay. So it kind of reminds me of in REBT, where it's not the fact that he's saying, like, it's not the fact that in choice theory he's saying your behavior is the only thing that matters, not your emotions. It's my belief that him saying that is him placing blame on me, and I believe that blame is bad. So like it's my reaction to what he's saying is sort of a
Celia,
cognitive thing.
that was so brilliant and so meta, and that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
Yay. Awesome.
Yes.
I'm gonna leave on that
So,
high note.
okay, so Celia, I know you're not speaking, but you can hear me. As it turns out, I had an almost identical conversation with a friend on Facebook. And thanks to the wonders of modern technology, I actually have that very conversation from a year and a half ago available at my fingertips. And so I think I'm going to pull it up. It's going to take me a second. Okay, I'm just about ready to go. Celia, I'm going to be pulling up a Facebook conversation.
Mhm.
I was wondering if you're able to see it, if you'd be willing to take the part of Jennifer, and I'll play Scott.
Sounds good.
Okay, so tell me if if everybody's able to see this, because I can't see what you all can see when I share screen. Okay,
Okay.
can you see the Facebook post enough to read the words?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so let me start.
Mhm.
So initially, I'm just making a post about whatever on Facebook, and I saw this meme, and something about William Glasser that I really relate to, and it affects my grading policy. He was very opposed to external control psychology, which is to say, using some kind of punishment to think that you can influence people to do something differently. As he said, you can't change somebody else. So I put this meme up about how government and school and religion and the whole system tries to use fear as a way to influence us. So I wrote, William Glasser, choice theory, was adamantly opposed to external control psychology, or thinking that we can motivate or change other people through fear or punishment. As Glasser said, when you're trying to change someone else, first of all, you don't. Second, now you've lost the relationship with them. Jennifer?
Glasser's choice theory raises my blood pressure.
I can see how that can happen. Glasser was against external control psychology. He was also against blaming. He created quality schools that didn't have the grades and were student-centered. I might have presented it in a way that seems different than that, so I'm going to edit.
Good edit. I have a hard time swallowing the idea that if I get the flu, I am stomach aching. Not everything is within my locus of control. Like logic. I like logic best, especially when coupled with thinking for oneself.
Jennifer, the subject of stomaching or any other ing is that it was the best choice available, as opposed to becoming anxious, depressed, angry, etc. And by the way, during this pandemic, if you are anxiety-ing, that might be your best choice, as opposed to not being able to take it and freaking out or running through the streets, etc. That was the best choice that was available. As opposed to becoming depressed, angry, etc. He was less focused on that being a true cause with physiological or neurological issues. Whether or not true in reality, acting as if it were true, can be helpful in regaining agency and control over your life. In choice theory, personal issues are related to the quality of our relationships, and in seeking to meet the 5 essential human needs: love, belonging, survival, freedom, power, achievement, and fun.
I had never looked at it that way. You're a better professor than the one who taught it in grad school. Nice.
Yes. And then she says,
Oh yeah. For the real. To Scott, for reals, it's like a light bulb just went on.
yeah. So we had that little conversation last summer on Facebook. So you are not alone in having this initial reaction to choice theory.
Good to know.
Yes. All right. So now we're going to pick back up with the 7 deadly habits and 7 caring habits. First, the 7 deadly habits. I think that Glasser agrees with Celia. Here's what he's opposed to: criticizing, blaming, complaining, nagging, threatening, punishing, bribing, rewarding, because all of these are external control psychology. Instead, he recommends 7 caring habits: supporting, encouraging, listening, accepting, trusting, respecting, negotiating differences. So then pathology or mental illness. Essentially, William Glasser, psychiatrist, medical doctor, did not believe in mental illness. He believed that, he didn't use this word, but he believed in mental adaptation. Like sometimes what we're exhibiting that other people would call mental illness is just the best choice that's available to us to cope with the situation that we have. So he said maladjusted people are not mentally ill. Abnormal behaviors are ways in which people behave when they are otherwise unable to meet one or more of their basic needs. What many other people refer to as mental illness, according to Glasser, is simply a description of how people choose to deal with pain or disconnection. The only true mental illnesses are those that are biologically based, like Alzheimer's. So let's talk about this idea of depressing. Like, why the F would anybody ever choose to be depressed? Sometimes it's the best option. Sometimes the other options are unacceptable. If I am a kid if I'm a teenager with my family during the pandemic and I am stuck in the house for months or weeks, there's not a lot of options available. And so people are going to have to react in some way. And it may be that by being depressed is the way that is the most acceptable, or is the way that will cause the least harm for other people. So there are lots of reasons why we choose things that we don't like. Even though we don't like them, they're better than all the other things that were available. And maybe even it allows us to protect other people around us that we care about. So, some reasons why people might choose depression. Intense depressive or anxious symptoms help keep anger under control. Anxious symptoms tend to lead to less harmful consequences than angering. When people choose intense symptoms, they tend to draw others in and elicit helping behaviors from others. I will not say a lot about this. My mom, who is 78, does not drive. And she made that choice, and it was a choice a year and a half ago. Since that time, she is dependent upon my sister, my nephew, and I to drive her. And we all live 45 minutes to an hour and a half away. And so the condition where she's not able to drive, she's 78 and forgetful. Like, did she choose forgetfulness? No, of course not. But that may have been the best option. And it also then, now she sees my sister, my nephew, and me way more than she used to when she was driving on her own. So they tend to draw others in and elicit helping behaviors from others. Choosing intense depressive or anxious symptoms allows people to avoid what they fear most. So these are some of the hidden benefits. So now let's talk about counselor and client roles. So one function of a counselor is to model what it is like to be in a healthy relationship with another person. And so the counselor is going to be doing things to engage in relationship and healthy relationship with their clients. They're going to focus on connecting. They will be courteous, enthusiastic, firm, genuine. There's a focus on the present. Choice theory likes using humor and empathic confrontation, especially in helping people look at what parts of what's going on they can take responsibility for that will give them more control. They use empathic confrontation, don't accept excuses, don't argue, don't criticize, and don't give up on your clients. Okay, role of clients. Clients need to take responsibility for the choices they made, even if they weren't conscious choices. Clients need to work on changing their language, saying I was depressing or anxietying versus being anxious or depressed. And this can be used in the positive, beneficial way as well, that clients can be funning, or they can be angry. So clients need to work toward making responsible choices, and they need, outside of the counseling relationship, to seek and build and maintain healthy relationships, and that is how they themselves can become healthy. Again, all problems are relationship problems. All right. So one of the primary techniques during choice theory, and it's something I'm going to want to focus on for a minute now, is if you could think about, you can write down if you want, something that you are wanting to happen in your life. This is not big things. This is things that you're currently working on. It could be even something like writing papers in graduate school or making it through the pandemic. It's similar to, I mean, the type of issue we're looking for, similar to when I did demonstration activities in class, like with Miles, that he was trying to make a decision about something. So you need to think about like something that it is that you are wanting to happen. So take a second, think about that. So the W is the wants, and I want to now go into more detail and be looking at this W. Okay, can somebody tell me, did what you see switch from the PowerPoint to wants with bullet points?
I've still got a PowerPoint on my screen.
Okay,
so
that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay, now you should see a wants. Somebody tell me if you see wants.
I do.
Okay, thank you. All right. So for whatever your want is, it's how you want things to be. This is your desired state. So things to be thinking about in relation to your want. What do you want? What do you want instead of whatever is problematic now? What is your picture of a quality life, relationship, etc., in relationship to what you want? What do your friends and family want from you? What do you want from counseling? These are all examples of wants. And whatever your want is, the next thing we're going to do is to take a look at what are you currently doing in order to achieve what you want. So I want everybody to think about that for a second. This is the D, the doing. What are you doing in order to accomplish your want? So if we look at specific questions in relation to what you want, what are you doing? What are you acting, thinking, feeling, physiology, body feeling? When you act this way, what are you thinking? When you think, act this way, how are you feeling? How do your thoughts and actions affect your health? Be thinking about those things in relation to what you want. Because it's going to take us down to the E, which is evaluate. The thing I love about the E in the WDEP is I just need to think of Dr. Phil. I'm not a Dr. Phil fan. However, it does help me think about the E, because the E essentially is, how's that working for you? Okay, what is it that you want? What are you doing to achieve what you want? How well is what you're doing working? Now, if this conversation is taking place during a counseling session, most likely what somebody is doing is not working. That's also true most of the time outside of counseling sessions. So the natural human tendency is when we're trying to accomplish something and what we're doing is not working, we do that same thing that isn't working even more, and it doesn't work even more. But so we need to evaluate how well is what we're doing getting us what we want. And that little part right there, that could be a blueprint for every counseling session ever. So we're going to evaluate. Is what you're doing helping you get what you want? Is it taking you in the direction you want to go? Is it realistic? This is like SMART goals. Is it achievable? Does it help you look at it in that way? How hard are you prepared to work? Is your current level of commitment working in your favor? Is it helpful? You are evaluating how well is what you're doing getting you what you want. Plan. What are you prepared to do, think differently? If, by the way, if what you're doing is working, keep on doing it. But if it is not, then we go to the plan. And what might you be able to do differently that might better be able to help you achieve what it is that you want? Are you clear about what you're going to do? The more detailed a plan is, the more likely it is to be successful. How will you know you have done it? This is part of any counseling goal setting, that if you set a goal, you have to have a concrete, sensory way to know that you have accomplished the goal, not some kind of vague thing. And by the way, not something that won't happen. But what is it that will happen that will let you know? What will you see, hear, feel, smell, touch, taste, pass through your lower intestine that will let you know you have accomplished and achieved what it is that you wanted? This WDEP is like a fulcrum for working with clients. It's a big focus. And there's another acronym coming up as well that is important. And that is the SAMI 2C3. I think I'm going to turn the microphone over. I'm going to turn the mic over to Mike. Oh, sorry. Mike, go ahead. Oh. Hey, so Mike, I don't know if Mike stepped away. This was going to be his part of the presentation. Okay, we're going to skip through this for a second and go right to, I think, quality schools. So quality schools are super cool, and it's a whole concept created by William Glasser. Side note, it's interesting to me that many of the counseling theorists also are educational theorists, such as Carl Rogers, such as B.F. Skinner, and I think that's really cool. So in quality schools, there's an emphasis on motivation through choice rather than coercing people, rather than motivating people that if they don't do what they're supposed to do, they will be punished with a bad grade. And in William Glasser's quality schools, there are no grades. The desire for learning is intrinsic. To the extent possible, I try to use that as my motivation in my classes, understanding I'm within this traditional academic system. Quality schools remove external psychology, which I just call bad behaviorism, and instead they focus on quality instructional relationships. I want to go to a quality school website so that you can see a little more about this. So there's an overview of choice theory and how to apply choice theory to education here. This website has lots of really cool resources down here to this comparison of traditional and quality schools. Traditional boss management, learn or I will hurt you, rote memorization. In quality schools, students learn how to be leaders. Learn and it will add to the quality of your life. So it's an integrated, interdisciplinary approach. Hey, Mike, just checking if you are back.
I think I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you well. So we had to skip over Sammy C3 for a moment.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I lost the audio for some reason. And
Oh, okay.
I don't know what. Just, life happened there for a sec. So,
Right.
but I am back.
Okay, we are almost through choice theory. So I'm going to get to that. Why don't we get to the end of that, and then we'll go back and talk about SAMI C3
Okay.
as the last part of choice theory.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I think what we have left is just SAMI 2C3.
Alrighty, y'all. So I'm gonna just briefly go through this because I didn't when I first was looking at this a couple weeks ago. I didn't want to over complicate it because these are, for me at least, and just my understanding of them, these are pretty straightforward, and they're meant to be that way. That there's some intentionality to that, in that these are how we can set goals to encourage the best results. And Scott, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but I've read 5 or 6 articles from neuroscience all the way through to med research that really support this way of making goals for people to follow medication plans, for people who are learning how to manage what's that football player issue, the CTE, I think, the concussion.
Right. Yeah.
There's just a lot of evidence to support these, and so I'm just going to really quickly go through these. But I think I came up with an activity where we could kind of like try to make some of these goals to help you all out, you know, on whatever it is you want to achieve. So having said all of that, these are also called SMART goals. You might see those. I don't think I have control of this PowerPoint, by the way, Scott.
I don't think that you do. Just tell me when to click.
Okay, cool. I was just going to say that that these are kind of like those SMART goals in that they're very directive. So when we talk about SAMI goals, they're simple, they're straight to the point, they're attainable, they're measurable,
And so, you know, it's so stupid. Every time I accidentally click something, it moves it. But
no, you're good.
okay. So for attainable, that means that it's stated in positive terms is one, that you're saying what you want rather than what you don't want or what you're going to stop. So like somebody says, what would your goal be? Like, I don't want to be sad. Okay. I don't want to be sad is not an attainable goal. There is no way to measure it. Now, and I would say, if you weren't sad, how would you be? Some go, well, I think I'd be feeling quite pleasant. So feeling quite pleasant, that's attainable. We can measure it. It's measurable. So if you were feeling quite pleasant, what would be different? Oh, I'd have like a cool feeling in my gut and a big smile on my face. And I'd hear myself saying, you are awesome. And that's how I'd measure that I've achieved my goal.
Yeah, and so another way that I kind of think about this, Scott, is that they're realistic in that
Yes.
Not only can you get it done, but it's realistic for the time frame. Like
That's right.
I had a whole bunch. I'm not kidding y'all. I had 19 case notes I had to finish today, but I got them all done, and I set that goal. And I thought, you know what, that is kind of realistic. I have an hour and a half right now where I can sit down and bust these out. But that to me, just based off my day, was realistic, and that's one of those really hard things for clients sometimes, especially for college students, is they try to. There might be this goal to like graduate and get a job. Well, what's that mean? How do you measure that? What kind of job? What type of employment? When do you want to graduate? What do you want to study? I'm thinking about my PhD experience just right now, and a realistic goal that I have with my dissertation is to finish it. But that's almost too overwhelming to think I've got to write this 100,000 million page paper and get it approved by 3 different faculty members, and Scott and everybody in the entire counseling world. You can see my anxiety right now. But I've got to do all that.
Are you anxietying?
I am anxietying because of the APAing that I have to do.
And so notice in this setting, it's acceptable for Mike as co-instructor to be anxietying. It probably wouldn't be acceptable for him to be angering or for him to have some other reactions.
And then finally, the other thing that I think is really important about this is that immediate part. Because to me, when I think about the immediate, is that it's going to have some sort of benefit to it that'll keep you kind of going. And I've noticed when I work with clients sometimes that sometimes there's this goal that's huge, that's completely, there's like 17 different parts of it that you can measure. And so you got to kind of work with them to kind of slow those down, make those more realistic, make those more measurable. But at the same time, there's also like you slowly start to build these little wins when you do get some good feedback from, a professor, for example, on the dissertation that I submitted one of the chapter drafts. I got some good feedback, which is good. And I didn't do the APA things right, but who cares? Just kidding, Scott, I care about those. But it's just that immediate piece I think is really important. And then finally, there's the involving part, which to me is about that timely, that it's again measurable. And then there's the 3 C's, which are controlled, consistent, and committed. Controlled. And Scott, I'm interested in your thoughts here, because here I almost wanted to go two ways, because I think of controlled as in like the choice theory purist of I control every, like I control my thoughts and thus I control my behavior.
Yeah, I control what's within. Okay, I control what's within my own control.
Hmm.
And so controlled in the SAMI C3, SAMI 2C3 means that my goal is within my own control. It does not require the participation of other people for me to accomplish this goal.
Yeah, and I think it really fits in with, I just type into, I hope that went, oh, I sent that to somebody else. No, I was just chatting in the chat box that these are similar to the SMART goals, but it's like SMART goals multiplied by that control piece, and that these are all controlled,
Yeah.
and therefore they are consistent, and you can stay committed to them because there's so many like inner working things that bring them together. But that's just my perception on it, Scott. I'm interested
Right.
in
And with commitment, just with that last one. So if somebody is committed to accomplishing a goal, as opposed to being a little half-ass, then it's much more likely to actually be accomplished. And love the comments on SMART goals, which I'm a fan of. And these preceded SMART goals, and I think the creator of SMART goals, they kind of took the best of all the goal setting models from all the different theories and put them together. So, Mike, I noticed that you've stopped talking.
Yeah, sorry, my internet connection is being wonky at the
Oh,
moment.
hey, that's all right.
But yeah, we've been going for an hour and a half, and I didn't know if you wanted to continue and maybe do a break, or if you
Well,
wanted.
my sense is that we are close to being done.
Yeah, me too.
And I would hate to extend it for 10 minutes just to come back and say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of all I got with those goals. I tried to not complicate them for y'all, but they're similar to SMART goals, but it really is that control piece that's multiplying it in. It's just the last thing I was going to say.
Yeah. So, so in the remaining few minutes, one, we'll take questions about choice theory, and I'll talk about what to expect for next week. So first, questions, comments, thoughts related to choice theory and what we've talked about.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Ellen.
Yeah.
I can really relate to this theory because we pretty much employed this theory. We kind of applied it to an at-risk education setting within a high school. And I was one of the teachers. I never discussed it with the principal, but I kind of gather from all I have got to know about this theory that this is pretty much what he did. There were no grades. Everyone got B's, but they had to work up to a B, or they had the B already, for one thing. We were on a computer curriculum program, and everything was self-paced for them and self-directed, and they were generally what I call at-risk kids. Their needs were generally not met at home in some way or shape or form. We tried to model as teachers the behavior we wanted, and we encouraged them and tried to get them to have inner locus of control, because they did like to blame their situation for not reaching their goal to graduation on other people and their circumstances. And then about a year or two into the program, I finally read Glasser's book, and I thought, aha, this is it. And so I was able to at least have that knowledge to kind of get them to make choices. So I guess that's all I wanted to say. And so it works especially in school, and I'm sure it will work in counseling when I apply it somehow. So.
Thank you for sharing that. And, and one of the things about choice theory is it's one of those things that when you see it in action, for me, I just really appreciate it so much. And sometimes like in reading and trying to imagine what it would be like, that's a little more difficult. So really glad that, Ellen, that you're able to give us that specific example. I mean, it sounds like you were using the principles of choice theory in quality schools. Other thoughts or questions related to choice theory?
I have a question.
Yes.
Scott. I have been listening. I just read it and I didn't understand until you were explaining, you and Mike.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, can we use some of this choice therapy not as the principal or the main therapy in counseling, just one or some to, like, for example, the goals, how we
Yes.
can measure and in order to see if my client is progressing or if is in the right road to get the goals. Like, for example, I'm hearing I was reading the question that you were showing for goals, what we want, how evaluate them. And I don't know if we can take just a part of this choice theory, combine it or, link it with another. This is my question because I haven't used this one ever.
So yes.
Okay.
So first of all, I'll go with the most global. Like if you're talking about when I am counseling a client, can I be integrating components
Mhm.
from choice theory with person-centered theory and cognitive behavioral theory? Yes, definitely,
Okay.
100%. Okay, so then let's go to a slightly smaller scale, like final paper for this class. Can you use components of choice theory combined with components of other theories to develop your own personal approach to counseling? Yes. What about for the case studies, the 2 case studies, where you have to pick one client and one theory and apply that one theory to that one client? Could you use parts of choice and parts of other theories? No. In the case study assignments, you need to pick one theory for each of one theory for the first paper and a different theory for the second paper.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Hey Scott, can I also
Yeah, go ahead,
add
Mike.
I just wanted to let you know that, like, and let all y'all know that I am quite a humanistic counselor when I work with my clients at CCS. I do integrate mostly acts, but I have used these types of goals all the time with many of the students that I work with who are going through relationship stuff. I always, I bet you $50 with every single client. I have always said something about the really hard part about relationships is all we can really do is give somebody else information. And I don't really phrase that with a question. I just throw that out there. And some of my clients just go, whoa. And it's kind of, it's not funny, haha, but it's really interesting to me how just that subtle little validation of, hey, it's okay that, we're going through crap, all of us, and all we can really do is give somebody else information. It's about that relationship. It's just really cool. So I integrate some of the choice theory elements into my humanistic practice.
So Mike, you're saying that primarily whatever approaches you use, your personal philosophy might fit within humanism, the third force, which includes person-centered counseling, existential counseling, Gestalt counseling, logotherapy. But nevertheless, even though you're humanistic, but you use techniques from ACT and from CBT and from some cognitive approaches and some choice theory as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Additional thoughts, questions related to choice theory?
So when I read in the book that choice theory is like preferred by schools, is it because it's, well, I guess for me it seems kind of quick. You know, you do those you put those questions down when you're talking to a student, as opposed to CBT or any of the other therapies where you don't have that 50 or an hour long session. Is that why it's preferred so much? Or just because it's kind of easier to get through? I don't know if my question makes sense. I'm tired, so.
It makes a lot of sense. And
Okay.
if we were in a face-to-face setting, I would say to the whole class, what do you all think? But we're virtual, so I'm just going to riff. So Joanna, I can't quite answer your question because I don't support, choice theory wouldn't support all of the phrasings of how your question was constructed.
Okay.
And your question is asking about a cause and effect relationship, which choice theory does not support.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But let me riff more on choice theory and popularity in schools.
Mm-hmm.
I do not think it is because it lends itself to short, quick interventions, but
Okay.
that is a benefit. It's true. That is one of the benefits. I don't think that's why it's popular. I think it's popular because it's an effective theory that really helps people achieve their goals without needing to blame.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a quality school counselor was a guest speaker in my class 18, 19 years ago. And he talked about, like this, so he might do a quick intervention between a teacher and a student where the teacher thinks that the kid is acting up in his class just to kind of piss the teacher off. And really there's a bunch of other stuff going on with the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so the quality school counselor is able to mediate, like, what is it that you are really wanting and needing from the student? What are you needing from the teacher? And can we find some mutually acceptable ground without needing to put a blame or a cause and effect or you made this happen
Mm-hmm.
into that? So in a way, it's like it's judgment free by design. Yeah.